All right. We have Neil Twa on the show here today, and with nearly $100 million in Amazon sales as the Chief Executive Officer of Voltage Holdings. Neil is absolutely a titan of industry. Neil, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, Jacob. Great to be here. I'm honored and I'm excited about this call.
Excellent. And you and I had an initial conversation, and something really sparked in my mind that I absolutely loved. You said you don't do anything that you don't want to do. And I believe a lot of people would love to have this mindset. When did that really originate for you?
It was a recognition of many years of trial and error in life and business to come to the conclusion that the best format for me was a lifestyle that drives business, not to try to create a business that drove my lifestyle. That was a realization I've had as I've gotten longer in business. And of course, I've surrounded myself with people, mentors, and others who've tried to continually push or help me level up my game to think about the different, not just the different levels of business, but the different thought processes and thought leadership it takes to reach different levels of that business. And for that reason, I have evolved into a better understanding of not just a work-life balance, but a mindset and an expectation of my time and activities that output for money and other activities, of course, that drive a lifestyle that I can move around my business and create the environment that I live in now, which allows me that freedom. So it's come in time and learning, hard knocks in some cases.
So you mentioned the different levels of growth and development.
Yeah,
Do you have ways to classify these for people who might be at different
absolutely.
levels so they could identify where they're at?
Yeah, everybody understands business to some degree. They may not understand the inner complexities of it. They may not understand the terminology, the accounting, whatever it is about the business. But we all understand that there are levels to, say, washing the windows and cleaning the floors and being the guy that scrubs the toilets, to the guy who maybe is in middle management or growing management, to the owner operator, and then to the CEO level. There are those different level tiers. And a lot of people want to jump to the top tier and just say, I want to hire other people to do things for me, even if I don't understand how to do it. And that's going to make my life easier. And therefore, I'm going to have more of a lifestyle driven business. My experience is if you don't understand the operations of each of those levels, you fall flat in them, and then you hire the wrong people, which takes you too long to find them and takes you too long to qualify them. And then you get stuck firing them. And months later, you're now in this situation going, how did I get here? And how did I spend all that money? It can look in some cases like that CEO show. I forget the name of it. It's out on one of the channels. What is it called? Undercover Boss. That's what it was. Took me a second to forget. And you start to see some of that disconnect. I try to help people understand it doesn't need to be that way. He may be, or she may be at the top of that business and needs to go back down and actually wipe the floors and clean the toilets and recognize what the people are dealing with in that business. But I think it's easier for people to start accepting those rungs of control, those growth rings like on a tree as you expand your network, and expand your understanding, and expand your composer in business, to not forget what it was like to do those things, even if you're not doing them right now. It makes a stronger person in business and makes it easier for you to qualify and quickly hire the right people and fire the wrong people faster. And then obviously understand the nuances of those particular positions and operations in the company so that you know how to correctly create your standard operating procedures or OKRs that make them run properly. And then you give them a runway to do it on their own. And that really helps take you out of those roles, not just hiring somebody you think can do it, but somebody you know can do it.
Fantastic. And it's our belief here on the show, and this is why we do the show, is that your thinking determines the quality of your life. And from there, because your thinking determines your decision-making processes, which determines your results, your actions, your life. So you talked a little bit about something that I've seen before with you, and that's about moving ideas from the conscious to the. Now, a lot of people that are in business or even just in life in general may not have even a beginning grasp of about what that means. Can you kind of give us an insight and then maybe take it further about could do a process like that and why it's important?
Here's where that comes from for me. My background in the corporate world before I was an entrepreneur, when I jumped out of college to basically go, okay, I'm hating college. This is not for me. I can't believe I'm doing this. And so I jumped out and said, okay, where do I go? If at the time that I was growing, academia or major corporations were the only way to really understand where the internet was evolving because it was moving so fast and that's where the money was being spent. So I chose to jump into the corporate world and stayed there for almost 15 years before I jumped out on my own in 2007. What I learned through that and the time that I spent was around the knowledge management of people, organizations, and technology, and then being able to translate that into quick results for a customer, a service, a system, a division, et cetera. And from there, we learned about intrinsic and knowledge that can be in tacit or implicit knowledge and how to communicate that correctly and use machines or processes to help disseminate that knowledge out into the field quickly so that it could be picked up by a person and learned. And then the system itself could support that person and obviously support the client or the customer at the end result. So as I learned about that systems and the knowledge, and I learned about the way people learn, it became a fundamental part of how I've structured myself, my business, my mentoring, the way we look at products and e-commerce and build businesses. It has to do with understanding the customer and who they are and how they're being driven. A lot of people are consumer driven, of course, and we buy things, obviously, but it's a very difficult mindset to move into a position of a seller and a business owner who is serving an avatar than being an avatar that is served. We may think in some ways about the way that process occurs, the way we got that product, or the way that corporation or business or small entrepreneur delivered that product, but we don't often understand what it took to get to that position. So identifying these products, or what I refer to as what the hell to sell when I start on the e-com side of the world, is to actually try to do your best initially until you have your aha moment, whenever it is, to put yourself in the mindset of someone who's buying a product. Why am I buying that product? Is it a solution? Is it an emotional driven? Is there a physical or function driven aspect to why I need that product in my life? We tend to try to move people into solution oriented product design and product conception, kind of the research stage, so that they actually understand that a solution oriented customer is the one that's willing to spend more money up front and wanting to spend more money long term. Amazon has done a great job of defining that. As a consumer, we understand it as Amazon Prime. As a business, they understand it as serving 100 million customers who will spend $1,000 in 12 months with them, right? That customer lifetime value is a defined component of their metric. As I look at their business and then extrapolate my customer ideas and my product ideas, I want that customer through the Amazon channel to start with to spend $1,000 in the first year with my business. And then I want to grab as many of those as I can. And so as I look at those products, we are looking at them at the solution oriented and seller perspective, because we know that if we double the understanding of that customer's drive, goal, solution, and orientation, we will double the revenue in our company. And as long as our profit is there and we've gone by the numbers correctly to know that product is profitable, every quarter we will build a profitable brand, right? From conception and outward. I'm not sure I got the answer out of that, but there's a lot to unpack in that question, right?
Absolutely. And that's very amazing, the insight and the dimensionality there. So one thing, to take it a step further, how could someone apply this to their life, moving ideas, perhaps maybe they're in conception stage about what they want to do, they want to get out, get some freedom for themselves?
Here's a simple tactic I like to have people do mentally, okay? You are all most likely Amazon buyers of some kind. If you aren't, your wife, significant other, sister, spouse, etc., most likely is. Women 27 plus are the largest buying demographic. 635, 40 million plus a day in sales are being driven by that demographic as a majority of the buyers on Amazon. So when you go and you look and or get insight into that person's Amazon seller account, if they've bought something or a number of things in the last 6 to 12 months, that's your step one. Go into the order history and just look at all the products that have been purchased. If it's for your household, maybe your wife did it, or your sister or aunt or whoever is in there. Look at those products they've been buying for the last 3, 6, 9 months. Why? Amazon statistics, to the most part, that they will give us, and Market Pulse Research just did an article on this recently with their latest update for 2022, shows that over 70% of those products are from third-party sellers, more than 76 actually. So that means that of those products, for every 100 you looked at, how many of them are actually sold by third-party sellers? The good majority of them. Meaning you can look at those products and realize somebody else, a small business, medium-sized operation, the smaller amount, about 5 or above, is going to be major corporate brands, and the rest are small or medium-sized businesses or individual entrepreneurs. And so what does that mean? It means I could sell one of those products. So my goal there is identifying those products. I call it creating a most list of products. So there's a big product list there. Take all of them down and look at them. First level research is to say, are one of these products potentially sold by a third-party seller? And the answer is more than 70% of them are. Then you take a look at that same list, and this is just a tactic to go through and say, what is the most product profitability of this? What's the most potential, the most upside potential? Did I spend more than $30 on that product? Why? The third step is the why question. Why did I purchase that? Was it an emotional drive? Was it need driven? Was it functionality driven? Was it solution driven? Was I trying to solve a solution in my life that needed to be solved? It could be something as simple as I wanted to carry my groceries in a basket on my bike and I didn't have a basket. And I wanted to take that and buy that basket for my bike so I could go solve a problem, which was taking more groceries home from the store. That's a solution. I might be willing to pay more for that basket because I don't want it to break and fall out all over the ground and break my eggs and make a mess. So as you start to think about the history and the products, the first tactics, the first simple level of analysis is to literally look into your own lives. And we call it urban mining. All right. It's going in and hacking the urban environment around you, because most often all of those products that are in your current environment that are sitting in my office and yours and whoever's watching this or listening to it right now is a product driven in that environment, and most likely has ordered products from third-party sellers that they could sell themselves. They just haven't thought about it to this moment.
And that's very valuable, because I remember one of the things I was getting started with my business, I read the book Think and Grow Rich. I'm sure many have.
Mm-hmm.
And it talks about your greatest opportunity may be where you are right now. So that sort of thinking is, hey, even look around at everything around you.
Yes.
You have your answers.
Believe it or not, I haven't actually read that book. What I'm speaking from is just my own life experience. If it matches up, cool. It just means there's more to this than just superficial knowledge. At the end of the day, there's applicable knowledge, lessons learned. We are a seller today. We do sell brands, and we do manage brands and help other sellers in the market every day, every week, every month. So and this is now almost a decade into this, specifically with Amazon FBA. But we also work in the direct-to-consumer market as well, which is, of course, taking that audience and conversation from the web, the social web, influence, and other places, and obviously turning those folks into customers.
Fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned something before as well about negotiating from strength, just
Yes.
so we can contextualize it for people.
Yes.
What is an example of where you negotiated from strength, let's say in the last 30 days or so? Of course, you can scrape any details that are personal, private, or what have you.
Yeah, typically negotiating from strength means I understand the market, I understand the language and the terminology, I understand the process, in this instance on the e-commerce side, to be dangerous enough to understand the process of procurement, pipeline, logistics, freight, and moving product through channel in a marketplace and into the customer's hands. We are teaching folks to become CEO operators so they actually understand what that means. And with that knowledge comes a position of strength. Without that knowledge or understanding the nuances of the business in this type of model, you are not negotiating from a place of strength. You're negotiating from a place somewhere in the middle to moderate range of understanding, but you need some of these things to be stronger. You need to know what your cost of goods needs to be. You need to know what freight and shipping charges and timelines look like. You need to understand customs and other types of criteria and have operated or learned to operate in those environments, because then you can actually talk to sourcing agents and suppliers and have a confident position that says, I need this product in this timeline at this price point with this quality of material and this type of features and functions and size and shapes and colors. And when you have that knowledge and you truly understand what it means, you are now in a position of strength to go out and negotiate better deals, better product, better price points. I was literally on a call today with some sourcing agents that we're going to be opening up out of the United States for international freight and delivery. And this is exactly the topic we were just going over, so that we can start moving product faster and easier through their supply chain and just adding them on as a new resource for my back end.
Got it. And so to really hone deeper in on that, what sort of people do you find have the easiest background or the easiest transition into something like this, working with you, knowing all the dimensions that are?
That's a great question, because you would think to some degree, everything I just said means you should have a very in-depth knowledge of logistics, e-com, supply chain, etc. And that's not actually 100% true. Having an understanding of business and having an understanding of basic accounting, basic skills, basic business level to a degree that you understand at least enough about what I just said to be dangerous means that you have an aptitude that's potentially can adapt, grow, and become knowledgeable and even expert in this area. Coachable, mentoring. Are you willing to understand and learn things you don't know? Or for some reason, are you locked into doing it a certain way and that makes it more difficult for you to learn? That's up to you, right? I deal with all different types of personalities. What I typically find is that if people listen to these podcasts and spend any amount of time in my environment, they realize very quickly there are obviously nuances to what you know and don't know, depending upon who your circle of influence is and who your network of your top 5 people are going to be. My top 5 network of people are all multimillionaires and on their way to being billionaires. So my network and influence has now grown over the decades to reach a level where certain types of business and expectations are no longer taken for granted. We don't launch a product base and a brand that we don't know won't reach 8 figures, right? It's a matter of learning and aptitude and growth and agility. And I'm looking for folks who understand that. And in the conversations and topics I have with them, I see their ability, their understanding. It's not theoretical. It's been applied in some fashion already in their life, even if it's not an ecom. And people like Daniel, who literally has a theology degree and he has a golf course management degree, he jokingly says in the last 12 months has developed a 7-figure business and has no experience in ecom prior to that. He had experience in some business and operations around what his wife was doing in her business, but he set off to do this thing on his own without really any ecom experience whatsoever. But he was teachable, coachable, and he has now turned this into something that he owns. And for that fact, now he has signed in basically onto the company last month to become a coach because his experience with new sellers is fantastic in his last month journey to help new people understand the things that he just went through and learn. There are some people who just will never understand certain aspects of this model or even certain relational things about business. They think it's maybe not real. They think it's not legit. They think you can't make it profitable. They've been online to some degree researching and listened to YouTube or other sellers or whatever and said, Amazon's a scam. They steal your products. It can't make it profitable. It's not a real marketing channel, and all of these other negative stereotypes that have been built up in this narrative. They typically get through us to a certain degree and then recognize we're not really talking about that at all over here. What we're talking about is true business building that just happened to choose that channel to take market to test and brand, and from there move it to direct to consumer into full models, because we're in an acquisition and exit model strategy. We are building companies to exit them. We're building companies to broker the exits and sales. Mergers and acquisition is a big component of what we do. Building up the companies and building the brands is the mechanism by which we deploy that, so that I don't have to spend 200 hours a week doing it, because I'm already doing it in the companies we do. And I want people to understand there is a lifestyle that can be created from this that will allow the business to occur. I don't want them to think that you build these businesses and then get the lifestyle. That's actually the wrong mindset. It's inverted. And most of my high earning friends and mentors know that. And it's something I've come to understand as well.
Could you repeat that part? Just because I believe that's very impactful, that last bit that you just mentioned about why building the business and that piece exactly.
In my experience, to just frame this into a little story real quick, back in November 2020, we had a Voltage Portfolios, as it's called. It's still up and running, and Kevin Harrington is one of my partners in that. We had an opportunity to go to acquisition strategy and become what's called an Amazon aggregator. They wanted to invest between 50 and 100 million into the company to actually grow and take it out. What I recognized at that point is I had built a business that was actually a part of my lifestyle. And when it was going to invert that relationship, but also not even be more profitable and even better for us in the long run, was to take that money and then put ourselves in that position. Some people would look at that and say that was a dumb move, right? Some would be like, wow, that's your huge opportunity. You just missed the opportunity. The lifeboat just went by and you're going to drown. No, that's not what's happening here. What I recognized is that my mentors are not in that position either. And when I asked myself, why would I get into that position if they're showing me that you don't need to be there? Just because the opportunity is there, it's not what I refer to as a crime of opportunity. I could have taken that and completely inverted my life. And while the business would now drive me to a different level of lifestyle, I would have now compromised the lifestyle that I love in order to do the business. What I recognize for me is it's not worth it. What I would rather show people how to do is take more time and energy up front while also working on their mindset correctly to understand wherever they are, W-2, contract, running a business to some degree, or looking to get started in a business, that a lot of the things that you need to do to be successful start with you understanding the lifestyle you want to live first, and then applying principles of business to that, and then building a business that supports that goal. So that actually starts before you get into the business and before you start to grow it. Why? Because when I do all the work initially in this initial bell curve that has to happen for all startup businesses, whatever degree it is, e-commerce or otherwise, I have this learning curve. I've got this growth curve. I got money I got to put in. I got time and sweat and equity going into it. I got activities I'm doing. I may be hiring people or firing people or doing anything necessary to get it up to that place. But the thing here is I don't want to grow more hours in my life to grow my business. What I actually want to see is an inverse relationship. I want that bell curve to go down. I want opportunities, OKRs, SOPs, growth in my business, organic growth, sales, and profitability to continue going forward. But I want my effort and activity to become more and more focused, so my time and energy goes from 20 to 30 hours a week to 10 to 15 to 5 to 7. Because if I'm doing it, my inverse relationship is my time is more focused on the most revenue generating activities that are required in the business, while I have others focused on their SOP and OKRs on those other hourly sets that they need to do to make each one of those segments of the business work correctly. And when I do that right, then I don't have to spend all that other time doing it.
Powerful. And I know that'll speak volumes to a lot of people who are listening to this. That whole segment right there, why you're doing it, And that level of thinking about what you said of your time involvement going down, that's all going to speak volumes to the right people. So to go through, let's say someone is ready to get started with you, they wanted to work with you, what would that journey be like? Because you just mentioned how important mindset is. So as long as someone has the right mindset, and basic fundamentals also help, but how do you help someone really achieve that level of growth and satisfaction in their lives?
We have a conversation and I understand whether or not they understand time, activities, and money, or whether they have that imbalance out of line. Okay. If their thinking or imbalance is out of line, then I'm not going to try to convince them to change it at that point. What I'm doing is looking for people who are already in flow, who understand these things and have been searching, because usually people have been searching 2 to 3 weeks, 2 to 3 months, 2 to 3 years, up to, I've had people go, hey, I've been looking for you for 5 years. And we align with each other. Those are typically a little bit more needles in the haystack. I qualify every person because I have a conversation and an application. I will choose the people I feel are most adaptable to the culture. They have the most understanding of the time requirements to make the business successful, that they actually do understand to some degree the revenue generating activities that make that all go. And then they will acknowledge that money will flow from that. Okay. If their first question is, how much does this cost me? I can already tell you their mindset is inverted. It's going to cost what it's going to cost. It will take you 6, 12, 48 months. It doesn't actually matter to the degree that you are dedicated to making it work, that you will understand the nuances of learning it and building it. I don't have a sales team. I don't need one. I don't grow this to 100 people a month. I'm not doing that. I am looking for the right group of people who will take this out to 12, 24 months and then work with me to exit the company. It may even go out to 36 months. We may open multiple channels. Most likely we will. We'll increase the profitability and the exit. We'll make sure the business is cash flowing while growing up the asset. But we're going to play a real business game. We're not going to play internet, make money online marketing, and what I call lottery mindset mentalities. So if any of that thing is triggered in the initial conversations I have with anybody, I simply will say, have a great day. Thanks for connecting with me. Go on your way. I will not let people fail on their dime on my time. And if they have not failed in business to some degree, if they have never struggled and tried, if they have never tried and even failed to some degree, they are not going to be a good fit for what we're doing. It means that they are going to try things that may fail on my time. And that is a waste of both of our efforts. I can't help everybody. I'm not trying to help everybody. I'm trying to fit a certain group of people into a system I know that works, get them to see the speed in which they can replicate it, and then show them how to do it over and over again.
Tremendous. So how has your self-development journey been over the years to today? What's your self-development practice like?
Look, I had to choose a route out of college. Actually, I failed out of college twice and had to get reinstated at one point. I had to go to the president's office and try to get it back, only because I didn't know what I was going to do. I went to school on a full-ride music scholarship and a work study on classical and jazz music. I thought I was going to be a musician. Then I realized I was just going to die in a van down by the river, starving to death. And I was like, that isn't going to work. I need to do something else. So I tried the business and got into computer science and realized, well, that sucks. I do not want to be behind a green screen the rest of my life. This is not my aptitude. So as I went out into the world, I realized I had to go to that corporate side. And I ended up in Sprint. I had the blessing of being in front of the PCS division before it launched the first mobile phone at the mobile division launch. Got to be a part of that, watch that company go from, I was 280th employee, if I remember correctly. I'm probably off by a digit because they pulled people in from all over the place. I got hired from a contractor into a full-time position to go and be a part of the team that launched that. We had like 5,000 reps. By the time I left, IBM had picked me up and said, hey, we want you to come to work for us. There were 25,000 reps and 80,000 employees. So I watched that business explode in the mobile division, which was very fascinating to watch from the inside out. When I got to IBM, the whole lifestyle thing shifted because all of a sudden, we jokingly call it, I've been moved. I was on a cell phone, a laptop, and I was traveling every week. And I was going somewhere different and I was doing different projects, sometimes 2 to 3 cities a week. At least in 1 or 2 years before I left, I had traveled well over 200 days a year. I was just running and gunning. But it did give me a feeling of being able to have a little bit more of that entrepreneurial style of life where I recognized that it was a stepping stone to the next step, which was actually trying to understand what it truly meant to become an entrepreneur. Now, my story kind of revolves a little bit around the rich dad, poor dad scenario. While my dad was providing for our family and was there, and I'm very blessed to have a hardworking father who spent 30 years in the business and retired later on from all of that. He didn't have a lot of education and didn't really understand a lot about business and stuff, but he understood a lot of hardworking. He was a family man and he was there and dedicated and showed me an amazing work ethic. My uncle, on the other hand, was an entrepreneur, came from a family of business builders, started a boat company, got very successful in the boat company, and went on to do some very amazing things. And because of his mindset and change, I got to see what a very different business growth and mindset look like. Unfortunately, he passed away in 2005, and that left me holding the bag a little bit on what I should do next in life, as I was still working through that with him to figure out what to do. And by 2007, I said, that's enough of this. I'm just going to figure it out on my own. IBM said, great, here's early retirement. It just happened to all coincide. And I said, great, I'm out of here. But all of those paths never lead to things that are always very easy. That's not the point. In my first year out of IBM, I got married in March. They let me out in June. We found out we were pregnant in October. And then my wife had to go on bed rest for medical reasons. Now she wasn't employed. I wasn't an employee. We were doing $250,000 a year and all of a sudden to zero. And then we had a new baby and a new business, and we were figuring out life. Nothing ever is easy when you want to do these things. And people are waiting for the right time and the right amount of money and all these right things. And I'm also looking, as I talk to people, about that language and timing, because that will not resonate. I'm looking for go-getters, action takers, people that I now understand have an aptitude for agility and timing and maneuverability. And they understand the fail up, not fail out mindset. And because of that, it just resonates with my story. And of course, they resonate with the culture that's now been built around us and our mentoring, because all the people that are in our mentoring are the same kind of people in that way, whether they're startups and getting out of the W-2, or whether or not they've got multi-franchises, 9 Subways and Chick-fil-A's and multi-businesses and 1,000 rentals and all this other stuff going on, or they got infinite banking policies and they're doing all these other things. Or they're flying around the world. I got 5 airline pilots right now involved in what we're doing, who are high earners, but they want to get out of the skies, but super smart guys. So anyways, I'm maybe circumventing your question a little bit, not to intentionally, but the end result is it's a path of learn, fail up, learn, fail up. I've even been bankrupt. I don't like to hide that fact because it's a part of business. It was a strategic thing, and I needed to do it because I found out my partners weren't being very responsible in their fiduciary duties. And when I recognized what they were doing, I was like, I have to get out of this. But that reset everything, right? I reset my path, reset my move. I went back to my core strengths in e-commerce. And in that process, I discovered Amazon. I discovered it from a friend of mine. And he said, hey, you can sell products on Amazon. And I was like, cool. As long as it's not like eBay or hawking things or doing all this crap. He's like, no, it has nothing to do with that. They have this thing called FBA, Fulfilled by Amazon. They'll help you with the last mile and the customer delivery and all this wonderful thing they'll do for you. And I'm thinking to myself, there's an idea for a lifestyle that I can get behind. Because at that point, we were now into our 3rd child, onto our 4th. I was at home a lot dealing with the family. I wasn't traveling anymore. I liked the concepts of building a homeschooling within my family and doing an alternative lifestyle and pulling out of the world and pulling out of the main cities that I lived in before and getting into the country and really envision that lifestyle that I wanted to create. And my wife and I envisioned that together, and we set off to do that. And because of that, we have now built our business around that whole structure, giving us the freedom to travel, do things, stay where we want, build our family here, homeschool, own 40 acres in the country, talk to people and help them build businesses while continuing to build our own. It's given a really great ability for me to leverage insights into people and try to help them with their mindsets, as well as helping them gain some foothold and remove themselves from the world if they want, by pulling out into a business that literally generates from their lifestyle.
So how has your sense of purpose and meaning transformed over time with that? Initially, it might have been, hey, let's get this business up and running so we can support the family. Then it became evolved and kept.
It was really focused on staying in my lifestyle, because at that point, as I mentioned earlier, I was traveling, doing the IBM thing, climbing the corporate ladder, just thinking about bigger and bigger business. And that was always a big forefront of my mind. Make more money, do a bigger business, get more credibility, have a 100-person company, all this other stuff, right? But as I realized that it was more important to focus on my health and wellness and that of my family, and specifically the health and wellness of my wife and my first child, who had a lot of troubles in life, that really suddenly shifted the focus. It wasn't so dramatic that it was like a story that someone might have that my dad died and all of a sudden I realized life has a whole different meaning. It wasn't that dramatic. But it was a slow roll of time and realization out of the life that I was trying to create. Go do buy, spend lifestyle. It was always about putting somebody ahead of something and hitting the next goal and the next mark and this hustle and grind thing and all this stuff. And my kids were going to go to school and be powerhouse this, and I'm going to send my girls out and do all this stuff. And as I watched our life change to adapt to their medical conditions and to reinvent the way we lived as a family, and my wife now basically not being able to work to deal with the children and her medical issues and really go through this whole route that became a big struggle for our family just to feed my children at that point due to the medical conditions and her issues she was struggling with. The whole priority set changed. And it happened over years for us. It was a slow kind of progressive change of realization that we just kept chopping things off, which really meant we stayed focused on continuing in our core family structure and our core life structure, and then looked to adapt the business to that. So it wasn't any big epiphany or one big thing. It was a concerted effort of continued change, adaptation, and agility that just stacked on top of each other until we really started to find our mark in the private label brand world and building our own products, our own brands, and serving a customer avatar with great products that are really good, structurally built, really strong products, not just cheap Chinese crap, as I like to refer to it, and building a brand of diversity that has an intellectual property asset to it. It has an intrinsic value. It's worth something. It's worth something to someone else later on. So I'm actually building something of an asset value into these businesses. I'm not just trading time for money again, which is one of the things that was a difficult lesson for me as I started out on my own. I realized so much of my effort outside of the corporate world was that goal of just trying to trade time for money again. Entrepreneurs wannapreneurs who want to be entrepreneurs fall around, you know what I'm saying? They fall around all those areas of that hustle and grind and chasing that dollar in their business until one day they wake up and maybe they achieved some of those things, but they recognize they're doing it. It's still 80 hours a week, but now they're a slave to their company. They're not a slave to somebody else's business. They're a slave to their own. And they missed it all. You know what I'm saying? They missed it all because they were so busy, heads down, getting it, right? They look up one day and they're like, crap, now that I got it, I don't want it. Not in this way.
This is something for people to rewatch over and over again. And I ask everyone to be taking notes as well, because Neil is laser focused. So there's a lot of value here. So many points that I can touch on over and over again. One thing in particular comes to mindset, back to that being such a key factor. I'm sure there's a lot of people who are going to be watching this. They're going to be thinking, they're going to feel it in here. They're going to be like, hey, I want that. The freer lifestyle. I want to capitalize on more, a better life, be there for my kids, what have you, but might be mental roadblocks. And I'm sure with the story you laid out, there was roadblocks that came up. So 100%. First, what is your mindset when you come against a roadblock? And what are some of the common mindset blocks that some people might run into and how they can overcome them, and maybe how you could even help them with that as well?
If you look at the road of a path in front of you and you think of it in terms of, there are all kinds of roadblocks. I always refer to this in my brain as that meme where you see somebody starting a new business and the road and path to success, you can see it out on the horizon. And in the meme, there's all these people lined up down the road, either trying to support you or swing bats at you or take a shot at you. And usually the first 3, 5, 10 people are always your family and friends. Oh, yeah. There he goes again. There she goes again. Another idea. What I tell people is don't tell anyone. If you are significantly driven to start your own thing or expand or change or move, then you don't tell anyone yet that you're doing it. You let them believe you're continuing on your path. You build your own focus. You build your own internal structure and mindset. You lean on a mentor to help you stay focused on those goals. An example of that would be you don't climb Everest without a Sherpa. So many people are at base camp right now in some capacity thinking, how do I get to my Everest, right? Whatever that Everest is, it could be losing my job, having a change in income. It could be gaining a new position. It could be literally trying to build a new company and try to get to that Everest, whatever that financial goal is or whatever that lifestyle goal is that's setting at the top of this mountain. You want to achieve that. Of course, it's slightly different for every person and it's not always monetary. And it shouldn't be always monetary focused. That's the third thing on the list, remember? So the goal here is to recognize, what do I need to get up that hill? I know people have died on that hill. That's what so many people know that about new businesses. 500,000 of them die on the way to their Everest every year. What they're missing is a little bit of arrogance and pride caught up in their ability to do and think they can do everything on their own. Okay, I'm going to save money, save time, do it on my own. You die on the hill of Everest when you do that. You will not have the right oxygen. You'll get the wrong clothing. You may buy the wrong tent. You may not have taken enough water. You're going to get halfway up there, and at some point, you're going to end up dead on that mountain. When you actually find a Sherpa and a mentor who will take you up, we're the guys who've set up there 15 times with people. We set off to the side. We're not in the pictures. We're just looking at, okay, I got to get back down the hill because there's another group going up next month. So we look at it very differently in that way with people who get out of their base camp. You need to understand that you will not know everything about the business model you're choosing to go into. You need to be agile. You're going to hit roadblocks. You need to turn and pivot. If you need to go around it, if you need to go under it, if you need to figure out how to build a ladder to get over it. But don't just hit your head on that wall expecting the wall to move. So many amateur business people, and in some cases, I see even some successful people we've mentored running this same gamut, They hit the wall and they keep banging their head on it, or they scream at the wall to move, or they try to coax the wall to move away from their position. And they're like, you don't move the wall, you go around it. This is the definition of agility, okay? When you hit that, you go around it. You get a person to help you go over it if necessary. You build a tool that gets you over it. You figure out a way to get over that hill. It is the perseverance component of that I'm looking for in people. It's the understanding that you're going to hit those roadblocks. You're going to run into those problems. You are not going to know every problem you can run into, but there are people in front of you who have already hit them, bounced off of them, been bruised, bloodied, broken, got up and did it again. Those are the people you should be looking for. So I'm never willing necessarily to look even at people who are willing to get into business brand new, who have never found themselves bloodied by life and the wall around them, because I don't want them to fail in my time. You're going to hit those walls. You're going to run into those potholes. You're going to run into things you don't know. Even with a mentor, they're going to do their best to keep you from falling in the hole and bruising your head. But guess what? Stubborn human nature says we're going to do it anyways, right? And all of my people to some degree do that. And at some point, they all have an epiphany, right? Something we said, something we instilled, something we may have said 50 times, 52 different ways, finally clicks with them. And it's usually at gained in success metrics. They got from base camp, they got up midway, they got up halfway, they got up 3/4. And all of a sudden they're starting to say, you know what, I can do this. Like, I get it. Now I realize what you were saying. Now I understand what you meant back here at base camp. Now I understand what you said to me when we were halfway up. Now I actually recognize on my own, right, with you around me, I will get to my summit. And it's an epiphany that every successful person I've ever worked with reaches. So who doesn't make it up the mountain is the real question people have in their mind, right? How do they fail? Why do they fail? Any ideas?
I mean, everyone has a reason for something, right? Each reason could be individual or particular, but I'm sure you have enlightening.
At the end of the day, I can come up with a million excuses to fail and quit on anything I will. I think I prioritize by time. I can change that priority at any time. I have never focused on any one particular area that can't be changed. It's one of the differences in the mindset. People say, I can't leave my job. Yes, you can. I need that car. Maybe you don't. I have to have this kind of house. Not really. You have a choice, and every choice may have a consequence. If you understand the consequence of the choice, you still need to understand you can make it. You are empowered to make it. That's step one. Because when I hear excuses like that, I recognize people are not ready to change. And so why will they fail? Because at some point they're going to reach one of those barriers. It will kick in and they say, I don't want to change this. An answer to the true entrepreneur who finally makes it to their Everest is that they said, I will change anything on my path to reach the top of Everest. I will not compromise integrity. I will not compromise morals. I will not take bribes and be unethical and do nefarious things, but I will not give up. And I will continue to get past those things, whatever they are, and I will change them to whatever need.
Well said. And for those people who are ready to rethink, replan, look at their life in that way, what is your call to action for those people?
In simple terms, if you're on that path, if anything I said today resonates with you and you at least want to have a conversation, just reach out to me. Look, I have a 3-letter last name. I have a small name, but I'm 6'5". Can't miss me online. If you Google TWA, you'll find my social media, you'll find me, and you'll find the airline company that used to exist. What you won't find is a bunch of people who feel jacked, and maybe you hear my rooster behind me because I do live on country acres out here, and there's animals running around everywhere, including my kids. But you will find that there's going to be a resonance in us with more than just the business. You will probably find my social media. You'll see things I'm talking and dealing with, and I'm spending my time being me online, even if people don't like me. You can go to my website that's out there on the links too for voltagedm.com, and you can see some of the presentations. You can check my network with who I'm with, and you can do your due diligence. I encourage everybody to do that before they reach out to me. If you're serious, we'll have a conversation, but understand it is an application. And so I will be qualifying you just as much as you're qualifying me, because I will not take anybody in I do not feel is ready to succeed at this business model. I don't need to do that. So we have a simple conversation. We find out if it's any good for both of us, and we understand the real business. And if it makes sense, then we might consider working together, and you might get an invite to join us and take a ride. If not, that's okay too.
And to double down on that, for those of you that are resonated with this, Neil's an awesome man, as you can tell. So just get out there, have a conversation with him. If your heart's calling for you, then go and take the next step. It'll lead you in the right direction regardless. So Neil, our final question, what are the top 3 highlights of your life, and how are you making sure that you're creating more of them?
Wow, top three highlights in my life. That's a great question. Top three, my family, number one. My belief in God and obviously something bigger than myself is definitely probably number one. I'll put that up at number one. My faith, my structure, and things that I have learned to persevere through in this world take me beyond it in my thinking and in my philosophy of life and spirit. So that is definitely a big one. Second, very closely second, is my family. I'm purpose driven in my family, my time. I've only spent a few nights away from my children in the last 15 years. We do home, we operate, we go as a unit, we travel as a unit. I don't leave with them unless it's just my wife and I taking a break. Otherwise, everybody comes with us. And so we're very tightly knit. I have 4 girls in my house and I'm very protective of who they are. And it's a component of something I know I will never regret because I'm putting that time, energy, and asset into them for the life that we're going to have as they grow up and build. So that's a huge component. And the third thing would be business and relationships. Let's call it networking. Because again, truly one of the things I gained knowledge on later on, and I wish I'd really understood this more when I tried to break out into myself, and that was network. It's who that gets you there and it's what that keeps you there. And if you can find somebody, a combination that matches up with that, your success goes through the roof. And it's not something that I take lightly anymore. My network is my net worth. And those who I work with and those who I get involved with and those who I am mentoring with or reaching to understand, it isn't just about finances. It isn't just about my push into the world and how much bigger I can be and how many more things I can gain. It's introspective, it's growth, it's learning, it's knowledge, it's adapting and changing to who I am. And so networking is a big thing I'm very focused on with the right people in the right situation because you never know when that opportunity is going to present itself.
Awesome. Neil Twa, everybody. I will have a link to his pages in the description. Neil, thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Hey everyone, thank you for watching this episode of Titans Up today. What did you learn from it? Make sure to drop a comment below with your most valuable insight so that other people can engage in the conversation around what this speaker brought to the table. And then on another front, make sure to subscribe so that every time we drop a new episode, you will be notified. And that way you can keep fueling your dreams and your brain with fresh insights which can help you along your journey and along your path to your goals. So thank you so much again, and I look forward to seeing you in the next interview.